The pitch clock fiasco in the Red Sox spring training Saturday game had all baseball fans going nuts.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN's Lauren Willand. And from what you maybe have seen on Twitter or just on overall baseball news, everybody is going crazy about the pitch clock, not only in what we saw from the Braves and the Red Sox game, but also just in general. And if you're listening to this right now and you're like, Jake, I have no clue what you're talking about, let me set the scene for you. Red Sox Braves, bottom of the ninth, tie game, bases loaded, the dream scenario for any exciting baseball game. And then we see Braves batter Cal Conley not get set in the batter's box within 8 seconds left on the pitch clock. And then the umpire calls an automatic strike. And then the inning's over. The game's over. It's a tie game, 6-6, because in spring training, they don't go into extra innings. And everybody, even Mike Monaco, the announcer for the NESN broadcast, couldn't believe it. And everybody in baseball was going nuts about what is going on with this pitch clock.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because people all over Twitter were just very, very mad about it. And we did have some baseball players weigh in on the issue as well. But the people who were complaining about the pitch clock and how Saturday's game ended are the same people who sit there and are like, spring training games don't matter. They do not matter. And the thing is, regular season games won't end this way. They won't end in a tie. Yes, maybe we'll see some dramatics like Saturday's game where it's the bottom of the final inning and you get called out on a pitch clock violation. So it's something that players will get used to. In the minors last year, at the beginning of the season, there were a lot of the violations, and it just got, people got used to it. And that's all that's all that's going to happen. But we've seen some violations. Manny Machado got the pitch clock violation. We've seen pitchers get them in spring training, and this is just what's going to happen. People have to get used to it. It's one of the new rules, but it was funny to see a game end that way because it's just like and in a tie, like it's not even like that. Neither team won. So that was the fun of it. This is the fun of spring training, like the dramatics of spring training, because these games don't matter. And you get to kind of work out these kinks throughout the next few weeks.
I think that's the reason why people sort of overreacted a little bit how they did. It was day one of spring training. People have been itching for baseball to be back and for something new to happen. People just went to the immediate overreaction of, what if this happened in Game 7 of the World Series, bottom of the ninth? Well, players and coaches and teams have a full 162 season to get used to this. So this most likely won't happen in a World Series. If it does, I get the reaction. I understand that, especially with the amount of stakes that come with a World Series or a playoff game. But at the same time, according to Jeff Passan, umpires have been instructed to enforce the pitch clock rules strictly because that's how they feel it's the only way hitters and pitchers will know to be ready early. And that's the one thing that I feel like with anything, not only in sports, but also in life, change is tough to get used to. And this is one thing, especially early on in spring training, they need to get these pitchers and hitters and also coaches conditioned to be used to these new rules.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all it is. It's just getting used to something that a lot of these players are not used to. Yes, the players in the minors probably won't have too many issues getting used to this, but there are obviously the Major League Baseball is filled with veteran players who have been around for a long, long time. And it's different. Batters are used to their routines. Pitchers are used to their routines, getting ready and getting themselves set and getting themselves in the right mental mindset to throw the next pitch or try to hit the next ball. So I know Ryan Fitzgerald had said something about it on Twitter, saying that it doesn't really seem like the same pitch clock in spring training that he's seen in the minors. And, he spent obviously last year with the Woo Sox and getting used to that pitch clock. But I mean, maybe they'll make changes to it along the way if there's enough complaints. It's Rob Manfred, so who really knows what he'll listen to when it comes to quote unquote trying to make the game better. But it's clearly working because Red Sox games were 2.5 hours. I know there was a Rocky spring training game that was 4 hours with the pitch clock. So it's not always going to be perfect. And that goes for the entire league. Red Sox are not going to be the only ones to go through struggles. It's a big change. And it doesn't, you look at it, you say 20 seconds seems like a good enough time, or 15 seconds, but it's the getting in the box set by 8 seconds because, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I still have 8 seconds left to get in the box or get myself set. And that's a long time in a routine that you've had pretty much your whole career. So it's like we've been saying, it's just a matter of everyone just acclimating to it and trying to, get in that mindset of not necessarily rushing yourself, but maybe tweaking your routine where you're like, let's just speed it up a little bit and just get in the box, because I don't want an automatic strike. I'm not trying to start my at bat 0-1. I'm trying to end my at bat because of a shot clock violation, a pitch clock violation.
And there's a lot of people who mainly watch major league games and aren't used to the pitch clock and what goes with it. I've seen the pitch clock for 2 years now, watching AA games, AAA games, and so this is something that I guess I'm used to watching games now. And for the people who are new to it and still trying to understand the rule, pitchers have to be on the mound with 15 seconds in terms of the catcher, it's 9 seconds, and then batter, it's 8 seconds. And I also heard a lot of people on Twitter, mention why not 20 seconds? And I don't know if 5 seconds in the grand scheme of things would really make the game longer whatsoever. But then it just sort of starts the process all over again, where pitchers and hitters have to recondition themselves for another 5 seconds. But I tried to put myself in the players' sort of shoes of. We've seen Devers and JD Martinez in the past do their breathing exercises right before, just a slow, deep breath. And hitters have always been told, and pitchers too, to slow the game down. And, now they really need to speed it up. And so, this is going to be a learning experience for, both ends of the spectrum in terms of the sport. And I think it's something that could make the sport a lot more exciting, because we've seen, obviously with the shorter games, but also with just not having batters and pitchers really elongate sort of the up at bats and, get themselves comfortable. And, we also heard Kenley Jansen, speak about earlier this past week how, he was, in terms of his metrics, he took the longest in terms of getting ready and being able to get the pitch out. And this is something that, he's worked on throughout spring training to be able to get conditioned to the new rules. And so, having that mindset, I feel like in terms of a player is the right way to go about it. But just in terms of a fan aspect, this is something that you're going to have to get used to because it's part of the game now.
Yeah. And, you mentioned it in the beginning that you worked with the Woo Sox last year. So you saw it, you got used to it. And for me, I don't know if you felt this way. I didn't even think about the pitch clock affecting times of games until I'm there and I'm leaving Polar Park and it's still not light out, but it's not pitch dark out. It's early enough. I can get home where I can probably still get 8 hours of sleep. But if I'm going to a baseball game, my sleep is really not my priority. But I don't necessarily think fans will have. Well, I can't speak for fans. I won't say won't have an issue with it, but I don't think they'll necessarily notice it as much as they think they might. And I know some fans are just very anti-pitch clock, and that's fine. It changes the game. It's a little bit different. It does speed it up, but it's more for the players to get used to than the fans. The players are the ones who have to kind of go into their batting stance, their pitching routines very different. And it might be hard for some of the veterans to get used to that because, like I've mentioned, they've had this their whole careers. And now all of a sudden it's changing because they want to make the game a bit faster.
Exactly. And, a lot of these players are subconsciously already have their routines. They've been doing this throughout their life, especially professionally, have been doing it for, 2 to 5 years or some more, obviously. And, they don't have to think about some of these different routines. Now they really need to think about it on top of also being able to play up to par and being able to, do their job of getting on base, elongating the count, and obviously for pitchers throwing strikes. And so it's going to be, learning experience for everybody in the sport, not only players, but also fans as well. But it was fun to see sort of, the new bases as well, without the shift rule. We saw, Matt Olson was able to get a hit that would have probably been out, last year with the shift 2 days ago. And so it's going to be fun to see how these different rules not only make the game more exciting, but also improve it a little bit more game in and game out. But, after the first game under the Red Sox belt, it was nice to see, some different players playing well. We saw Bobby Delbeck have a 2-for-2 game. We saw Ryan Fitzgerald continue his great streak in terms of Grapefruit League play. Tapia as well went 2-for-3. And, the one thing that I found really interesting was a lot of people, specifically on Twitter, were very excited about Bobby Delbeck, being in his element and, back to, being this top prospect and is going to be, unbelievable player, and everybody forgets about what has happened in regular season games. And we spoke about it earlier in this episode. Some people love to overanalyze spring training games, and some people are realistic and understand that these games really don't matter, and a lot of the time it's just practice and just getting back into your routines and everything like that. But from what I've seen in terms of the statistics, over 143 up at bats, Delbeck has hit 12 home runs in 273. So from what we've seen so far, it does not matter how well he does in spring training. All that matters is if he's able to correlate it to regular season games, and he hasn't been able to do that up to this point.
He's the greatest spring training hitter that ever lived, right? He was, and it's fun to watch these guys go off in spring training. We saw, Fitzgerald last year became a fan favorite because of his strong spring training. And you said it best. If these results can't translate into regular season games, then the best spring training of your life doesn't matter. And Bobby Dahlbeck, he's not a prospect anymore. He's an MLB player. I think we've seen enough sample size from him that we kind of understand maybe what he is. And of course, at any time he can pop off and go just bananas like he did in the second half of the 2021 season. We know that the power is there. We know the talent is there. But last year it was just game after game of being like, why is he at first base? Why is he in this lineup? And I mean, getting into that opening day lineup, the first step is having a strong spring training. And if he can crack this roster, I think he'll have a short leash, because we've seen this. We've seen him be very good in spring training. And that's a very good sign. We're not knocking him for being good in spring training, right. But those results have to translate into MLB, because that's when it matters. We, as Red Sox fans, and we don't want Bobby Delbeck up at the plate in a 3-2 situation, bases loaded, game on the line. No one's going to feel confident with Bobby Delbeck up in that position. So, and with the ban of the shift, it makes you wonder if it'll impact people kind of like Delbeck, but you got to put the ball in play in order to try to be better than last year. But it is good to see him, continue to have strong spring trainings. We just want to see more from him when it counts.
Exactly. And I'm just using him, primarily as an example. I'm not trying to knock on the guy. I love, the optimism that I see from some people, and I want to root for him. I want to see Bobby Delbeck be the player that we all hoped he was going to be 3 years ago, but he just hasn't done that yet. And that's the one thing that, I just wanted to, mention, is especially now that we're going into game 2, game 3 of spring training games. I love overanalyzing spring training games. I get it, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter if they don't do anything in the real games, where it really matters, where it actually correlates to the record of the overall season. And so I'm excited to see how, different players like Dalbec or Tapia or different pitchers are really able to take advantage of the opportunities. But let's tone back some of the optimism or excitement a tiny bit, just until we fully see what they're able to do on a regular season basis. But I'm all for overanalyzing and getting excited. We all love this team, but at the same time, let's be a little bit realistic about the overall results and how they might correlate to their performance in regular season games. But we're going to continue to speak more about and give you updates about some other players on this current Red Sox roster throughout the last few days. But before we do that and go into our second segment, Lauren just wants to talk to you about Built Bar.
if you're like me and you like to snack, you like treats, like special delicious treats, I need you to try a Built Bar because they taste just like a candy bar without sacrificing that taste of candy that we all know and love. And we're almost in March. I can't believe it. This year's already flying by. And if you're like me, sometimes a lot of my resolutions kind of revolve around healthy eating, making the gym a bit of a priority. And Built Bar helps me stay on track when it comes to healthy eating because it tastes very, very good. And maybe you're wondering, how do they do this? How do they make this protein bar taste like a candy bar? Because they cover all of their bars, even the Built Bar puffs, in 100% real chocolate. And there are a ton of flavors. There's a flavor for everyone. My favorite is cookies and cream, but there's also peanut butter brownie, there's coconut almond, there's churro. There's a flavor for everyone. And like I said, their bars taste like candy bars while maintaining the macros that fit pretty much every lifestyle. It's 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. And for the last 2 years, we've talked about going to built.com and placing your order for Built Bars, but now you do not have to wait. All you have to do is go to your nearest Walmart, hit up the pharmacy section, and get yourself a 4-bar box. But if Sam's Club is closer to you, just go over to Sam's Club. They have the 13-bar box. But if you are a patient person, built.com is still an option for you, and that shows up right to your door. But whether it's built.com, Sam's Club, or Walmart, do not miss out and make sure you get yourself some Built Bars.
Speaking about a patient person, somebody who has been patient over the last 3 years, just trying to be healthy back on the mound for the Red Sox, is Chris Sale. And, we've seen a lot of talk about Sale throughout this spring training, just the excitement of him being back healthy, him, getting back to his element or back to his ace form. At least most fans are hoping that, especially with him being looked at as probably the frontline starter at the top of this rotation. But Sale had the opportunity to throw 23 pitches, while facing 5 hitters against Alex Verdugo, Triston Casas, and Nick York. And from what we've seen a lot throughout this spring training, a lot of optimism for Sale, a lot of excitement. And he mentioned that it was a really big deal for him to be able to have the opportunity to get back on the mound, and it was nice to see him be able to do that, especially in front of his family.
That's the fun part that about him, his whole rehab, right? Is that you see his entire family there. He had his kids, his wife was there, his teammates were there. And it was probably a pretty emotional moment for him because the last time he faced batters, he got his pinky blown off. And he referenced that. He said, it went better than last time. All my fingers are attached. So he's taking it in stride. And to be able to have your family there to, coach you through the process and just be there for you for support probably meant the world to him. And I think that, we look at Chris Sale and we see Chris Sale, the ball player, we see Chris Sale, the pitcher, and the pitcher that Red Sox fans want him to be. But during his, his off season and his surgery, his wife was probably holding down the house, and she probably holds it down while he's away 9 months out of the year. So to be able to see, spend that time with your family in spring training and to be able to have them there support you, even though they've supported you for the last 3 years while he's been trying to kind of get back on track, it's probably amazing for them too. So it was really positive to see Chris Sale after his bullpen kind of almost like his spirits were lifted. He felt good. He had his family there. His teammates were all cheering him on. So hopefully that translates into strong spring training starts, and then that translates into regular season starts because there's a lot of pressure on him this year. I'm sure he's putting a ton of pressure on himself. Fans are, I don't know if they feel very good about Chris Sale going into this season, and understandably so, but this is a really big year for him. And I think he took a really good positive step this weekend.
And I'll bounce off of that and say I get sort of the negativity or the unsettledness that fans might have on the money that they've paid him over the last few years, the extension that they gave Chris Sale, and obviously how it hasn't worked out whatsoever. And he's also been upfront about that too. He's like, I'm not going to live up to the money that I'm being paid, but all I can really do is just go from here on out and try my best and work my butt off to be the best possible pitcher that I can be. And I think especially with what you mentioned, with his family being there, that definitely had to have been an emotional and motivating moment for him to, remind him what it's really all about. And, I made a tweet yesterday after I saw that video and sort of alluded to the fact that, baseball is amazing. Like the game is unbelievable. We all love watching. We all love consuming it. But family is really all that matters. And at the end of the day, when injuries like this happen, yes, it hurts the overall team of the Boston Red Sox, and the Red Sox obviously like aren't getting the value that they ultimately paid for, and that upsets fans to a certain degree. But you got to think about the human aspect as well. Families also hurt when the player hurts, and families never like to see a player upset or sort of depressed. Like we heard Chris Sale said that he was a little bit during his Tommy John surgery and all these injury riddled seasons. And so it's nice to see, a happy moment like this for the Sale family. And, I'm really excited as well to see how he's able to use that grit and motivation on the mound, because especially with what we saw in the 2021 playoffs of him walking off the mound, yelling into his glove, feeling like he was finally back. And with that energy, I just want to see that back on the mound. And, especially to have that fire back in the dugout. I'll never forget 2018 sort of had that David Ortiz-esque 2013 sort of speech in the dugout, hyping the team up and just being able to have that energy back of Chris Sale. Doesn't matter if he's not the elite pitcher that he was before. Nobody's expecting him to be like that. But at the same time, I feel like as fans who love this team, who love the players of this organization, who want to see this team succeed, the only thing that we can really do is continue to root for positivity in terms of the player, and continue to root that the player is going to put his best foot forward, and ultimately hope that he will get back to that elite form.
Yeah, and I think someone like Chris Sale, we know he's going to put in the work. We know that no one's harder on Chris Sale than Chris Sale. And he knows that this is a huge, huge year for him. And there's, a lot of people on the Red Sox have a huge year ahead of them. But, he can, and the only one who can do it is Chris Sale. He needs to go out there. He needs to put the past 3 years behind him and just focus on the year ahead. And I think he's somebody like that. I don't think he lets the past kind of get to him. He knows how to rebound. He knows what he has to do to kind of fix what went wrong if he has a shaky start. So I have high hopes for him, but I don't expect him to return to 2018 Chris Sale. But if he can be solid and he can show he doesn't have to be the shutout guy that, well, he probably would benefit from being the shutout guy. I shouldn't say that he can't be that guy, or he shouldn't be that guy, because yes he should be. He absolutely should be. But if you go in just kind of thinking that he's going to be solid, and if he can be the ace without giving you 8 innings every single start, but we know that he's going to go out there and give his all every single start, and he's going to make the adjustments, whether that's on the fly or between the first start and the next start. But I have high hopes, and maybe that's just because, covering this team the last 5 years, I've seen a lot of Chris Sale and his accountability and his ability to bounce back. And he hasn't had the opportunity to truly kind of bounce back because something else just hits him in the face or in the hand. So it's just being healthy is the number one priority. And hopefully he can do that. There's nothing you can do when a baseball flies at your hand at 100 miles an hour. There's nothing you can do. But if he can, stay healthy, he has a chance here to be a very, very solid, contributing, reliable pitcher for the Red Sox. And the pitcher that we've seen throughout his career, not just with his time with the Red Sox, but throughout his career.
Yeah, and I think what he needs to do is meet Thor the superhero, get one of those titanium metal sort of glove things to make sure that anything that comes close to his hand or whatever just bounces right off of it and doesn't injure it whatsoever. Also, stay off of the bikes. Maybe just wrap bubble wrap around him. I don't care. Just find any way possible to make sure. Maybe he can walk around like the Michelin Man. I don't know. Just make sure that he's able to stay on the mound. But it was nice to hear that he's very confident in, how his arsenal currently feels. He said, I'm really happy with my fastball command. I'm really happy with the shape of my breaking ball. It's just more about the consistency and sharpening the axe. And, especially with how effective that slider is for him, I'm so excited to see him continuously be able to fool players. Hopefully we can see a similar thing like we saw in 2018 with the Manny Machado sort of K sign, where he completely fooled Machado. That always goes in repeat in my mind and always puts a smile on my face. But another thing that put a smile on my face was seeing an old fan favorite be hired by the organization. A little bit of a blast from the past. Pedro Siriaco is back with the Red Sox. He was hired as an instructor for the Red Sox affiliate Dominican Summer League team. And there might be some people who are like, who are you talking about? Well, he was one of the only bright spots in 2012. Pretty forgettable season in my mind. But he was found a way to, get these unbelievable hits. I remember one of them. He was able to use his blazing speed to find a way to fool some of the fielders, and always, was able to get fans excited even during the, bleak and sort of boring and embarrassing 2012 season.
Yeah, good for him. And it's always fun seeing former players and ones that kind of left a happier impression than the entire season did get roles with the organization. And I mean, he's going to be great. People love him. I think the players love him. So it's just fun to see him kind of stay with baseball and to stay with an organization that, like I said, he provided a lot of positivity in a season that people were just like, dear God, when is game 162? When does it end?
And also for a guy like him too, who has a lot of experience in the minors and majors and understands the grind that it takes coming from the Dominican Republic, and especially with the summer league aspect of it too. These guys are just trying to grind to make a name for themselves, continue to help them, move up, and especially mentally, I think he'll be able to bring a lot of great experience from his past career and being able to help prepare these guys to be able to flourish in the United States and being able to flourish as they continue to move up the system. But, as we continue to look towards spring training and what to look towards throughout this next week or so, Alex Cora announced that some of the regular starters will be on the mound over these next few days. Corey Kluber will be starting on Tuesday, Houck on Thursday, and then one pitcher that I am so excited to see back on the mound, James Paxton. Everybody in their mother is just so confused and curious to see what he's able to bring this season. Is he able to go back to what we saw him be in Seattle with the Yankees? And from all the things that we've heard from multiple different players in the minors, he's semi showcased that in some of his bullpens and some of his throwing sessions that he's had. But all that really matters is what are you able to do on the mound to ultimately contribute to this pitching staff. And then we'll also see Triston Casas Triston Casas led off yesterday. And Alex Cora said, don't read too much into it. I'm glad he said that, because when I saw that, I was a little bit confused. And then we'll see Yoshida lead off on Monday.
Yeah, so this is, it's a fun time to see especially the leadoff spot when Cora was like, we're going to mix and match. No one's going to be the leadoff hitter for 162 games. So that's exciting. I'm really intrigued by the pitchers as well, especially James Paxton, because he was on his way to return last year and then he had the lat injury. So I'm really excited to see how he bounces back and just to kind of see what he can do. I know it's spring training, but I think he knows that this is a huge spring training for him as well, because a spot on this roster is not guaranteed for him or for anybody, maybe unless you're like Rafael Devers. But Alex Cora said, I'm taking the 26 best players. And you have to think that people, like James Paxton could be on the hook with that. But I really hope that he's been working really hard to get back from an injury, and then his lat injury that ended his rehab assignment in his season, essentially. So I'm really excited to see what he can bring, really, like what's there, what's left, and to see all this work that he's put in. Hopefully it's going to pay off. And like we said, we know it's spring training, but the fun part of spring training is overanalyzing everything, but also seeing these players, like Paxton and like Casas in the leadoff spot, like Yoshida in the leadoff spot, and seeing kind of how they do, and kind of, these aren't games where you have a ton of pressure on yourself, but what's at stake. And seeing Yoshida really happy throughout this weekend was a lot of fun, and he made some good contact. He got a sacrifice fly, so that was encouraging, and I'm excited to see more of him, because he looks very happy and ready to be here, and I really hope everything pays off for him.
Yeah, and it was cool to see him too, get to meet Pedro Martinez. He called him a legend as well.
Yep.
And, you also heard him say, hearing sort of his name be announced over the speakers and being able to hear the English words throughout the game really helped him start to understand a little bit more what Major League Baseball is and get comfortable in that sort of atmosphere. And he said that atmosphere is something that he was really, really excited about. And, I think as well, we've spoken a lot about overanalyzing in this episode. And I feel like Paxton is the one singular guy on this entire roster where in that start, it's okay to overanalyze a little bit because you haven't been able to see him pitch in 2 to 3 years healthy. And,
Right.
and especially in terms of the Red Sox, we haven't seen him be able to pitch at all. And so, whether he, blows up and does bad, in my mind, I'm going to go at it. If he allows 3 to 4 runs, I'm going to go at it the mindset of, okay, let's see what he does in his second start. Maybe he'll continue to get better. But if he shoves and, only allows 1 to 2 hits and strikes out 4, just gets more and more excited for what he's able to bring, obviously throughout spring training, but hopefully he's able to do that in the regular season. But we're going to continue to be able to fuel the excitement for this Boston Red Sox team going into 2023, as well as update you that everything that is going on around the organization throughout these next few weeks leading up to opening day. We're going to be posting 5 days a week. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube or whatever audio platform that you listen to. And we want to thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. That's right, it's back. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube. And it's also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Also, make sure to check out all the other great Locked On podcasts out there. There's, Locked On Orioles, Locked On Yankees, tons of different Locked On podcasts that you're able to check out to not only keep you posted about everything that's going on around Major League Baseball, but also all the other leagues as well. I bet Ian's having a great time over on Locked On Bruins
He is.
after what we saw, 2 nights ago with Allmark finding a way to score a goal on an open net. That was unbelievable. But also make sure to follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Myself, it's at Jake Iggy. And also Lauren, it's La 3 laws. Lauren with 4 R's. But we'll end this episode how we always end it. Keep the faith and let's go Sox. Peace.